Welcome back to the Goheen Cycles YouTube channel and episode number 8 of the VTX web build. This episode is going to be a little different. You're not going to see a lot of stuff get done. I'm actually waiting on parts to come back from paint and powder coat, but there is a couple things that we can actually get done in the meantime. So as soon as the parts get here from powder, I can start putting stuff back together and we can hit the ground running. Last week you guys saw me slide the final drive all together. The white wall tire should be here at some point this week. That'll allow me to get those mounted and then get the rear wheel put back on. So that's why I didn't slide the wheel back together last week. But today what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get the races taken out of the neck, the upper and lower race. Usually the top one is pretty easy to get out. Some guys have trouble with that bottom race. It's pretty easy if you just use a slide hammer. There really are not a lot of tools you can slide down inside the neck that have the right angle on them to get to that bottom race. But if you just use a slide hammer, takes a couple minutes and we'll be able to get that thing slid right out. Something else we're going to do, we're going to get the cables changed so that once we're ready to put the bars on, we won't have to worry about changing cables, throttle cables and the clutch cable. I'm going to show you the difference between the two throttle cables. There's a push and there's a pull, and there is a difference when you hook them up. Last thing we're going to do, since we're putting a high flow intake on this bike, I don't really want to get that put on until close to the end. I really don't want the chrome on that getting scratched. So since I do know that's going to happen, we are going to go ahead and put a Factory Pro Stage 3 jet kit in this bike. The previous owner had decapped the airbox, which basically means cut the top of the airbox off. That being said, I don't really know what's been done to this carburetor, so I kind of want to pull all this apart, find out what jets are in it. If I had to take a guess, the way it runs now, he's probably thrown like a Cobra Stage 1 kit in it, which the pilot light will not, or the pilot jet from that kit doesn't get replaced. So you're going to stay with your standard. I believe it's a 55 is what the standard one is. The Stage 3 kits start at a 58. I've also noticed that here, the past couple bikes I've tuned, including my own, 58 was not enough and I had to go to a 60 or a 62. If that's the case, we'll have to figure that out when we get to the tuning part of it. But all that being said, let's get started. First things first, I think we need to start with the cables. We'll go ahead and pull this clutch cable off and we'll get the clutch cable replaced. All right, so that takes care of the clutch cable. Pretty simple. There's the old one. Don't need that anymore. Now we're going to move on to the throttle cables. Throttle cables are pretty simple as well. It's very similar to the same process. Just make sure you route them the same way that the factory ones were routed. The biggest thing to recognize is this bike already has the bars and everything taken off of it. The ends on the push and the pull cables are different. So you're going to want to make sure that you pull only one cable at a time and you replace that with the same cable that has a similar end. All right, so to show you the difference, like I said, what's going to happen is this cable actually is threaded on the end. That actually threads into the housing, into your hand control housing. then it has a jam nut that runs up against it. There's another cable that actually has a nut that threads into it as well, but it's not a part of the cable. So this one needs threaded in. Usually I try to thread this in while the clamshells are off of the bike. When your hand controls aren't on, this is a whole lot easier to put on. Where this one, where you can see here, it's just like it's like a nut you can thread into the housing itself while everything's already together. So let's go ahead and get started on getting those done. Make sure you remove your air box, which I've already done prior to this video. You're gonna need to remove your air box and make sure you check the routing on your cables. Pretty simple once you see it, but you need to make sure they're routed the same way, otherwise you can get some binding. Let's get started. Basically what I've done here is I've removed the carb from the boot as if you were doing the SCAR mod or installing a jet kit. This is the throttle cables here. That one was already loose. Basically I removed it from the boot. I took this this piece off here, which you see in the SCAR mod video. It's basically just a little pin and a washer so I can get around to where these throttle cables are hooked up. Best thing to do that I figured out at this point is remove the front cable and then remove it down here. And then take it out. So that is the pull cable. This one is the push cable. And the way I keep these straight is when I pull these out, so the first one was already loose, but I'll take a 10 millimeter, and this should loosen up on here. Okay. Then shove the cable through a little bit. That'll loosen enough of it up that you can go ahead and pull this one out. So, like I said, keep these separated. That's not quite loose enough. And like I said before, pay attention to how these are routed. The neck covers are actually already off this bike, which makes it a little easier, but this is the back cable. This is the one with the nut that actually moves on here. So we're going to grab that one, we'll go ahead and slide it on, and then we'll grab the front cable and slide it on. All right, so we have one of our new cables here. The one that's the replacement with the piece that actually screws into the hand control housing. Slide that through where the other one was routed. And bring it down. And then hook it up. I'm not going to really be able to explain the adjustment process today since I don't have the bars hooked up. But that'll come in a later video. Probably one of the last videos where we're buttoning everything up. Or maybe the video with the bar install. And now, let's go ahead and grab the other cable and we'll go ahead and route it and get it installed. All right, so same thing, route it just like the other one. It'll sit down in here. Didn't quite open that up enough. And then route your cable down. Inside of that. Hook it up to the carburetor. And that one's usually easier to pull through from the cable side. And really, that's all there is to replacing the cables. Like I said, adjustments are going to be a little bit different. We'll get to those when we do the bar install. But that's getting the cables adjusted. So now what I want to do is, since all this stuff's already apart, I want to go ahead and break the bottom side of this carburetor off, take the bowl out, see what jets are in it. They had a permanent air fuel screw attached, and it was actually turned out 5.5 turns, which I would never, ever, ever recommend. The most I usually recommend to go is 3.25, usually 3.5 at most. If you have to go more than that, you need to jet. So I want to get this thing pulled apart and see what's in it from the factory, or see what the previous owner had in it, and we're going to go ahead and get the stage 3 kit installed. All right, let's take the last screw out of this carburetor bowl. We'll pull the bowl off of here, see what we're working with. If I had to guess right now, I would say this is a completely stock setup. Considering how many times that was turned out, I would be surprised if this was not stock. Looks like a 195. And let me see what pilot he's running, which I'm guessing it's probably going to be. So it's just a little bit of an odd tune, but we'll get it figured out. Get it all slid back together, put a new jet in it, and we'll go from there. We're going to start at a 215, I think. I just tuned a bike with a very similar setup to what this is going to have. I just tuned it a few months ago. I did a 215 with a 60 to try to get it to run right. This one, we're going to slide this Factory Pro 58 in here just to kind of see how it runs. Get that seat in there good. Now that those are in there, we're going to go ahead and slide the bowl back on. We're probably going to turn our air fuel screw, which it has the permanent mount, which you can see here. Probably once that gets to the point where I'm tuning it, I'll probably have it turned out probably, I think, about 2 1/4 out with that setup, and I think we should be pretty close. There is a possibility I'll have to go to a 220 on the top end if it costs, because this is a fairly large exhaust, so there's not a lot of restriction to it. And the intake is going to be, it's a little bit different than what it was running before. So, but it's similar to a high flow that I had tuned, like I said, a few months ago. So pretty much that's as far as we're going to go on the carburetor today. Now let's go ahead and get the races pulled out of the neck, and we'll get that stuff all prepped so that as soon as we get everything back from powder coat, we can start sliding stuff together. All right, so the first of these two races we're going to remove is this top one. This is actually the easier of the two to pull. I just use a long punch, slide it in here, and just roll around the race on the bottom. Yeah, kind of rocking it, and it'll just press right out. There goes that one, but don't throw it away because we're actually going to use it to press the other one back in. All right, so to pull this lower race out, you can see this is a cheap Harbor Freight slide hammer, and the one tool that comes with it is okay for like the first time that you decide that you want to pull a lower race out of here, but after that it's pretty much garbage. So what I did was, since then I have taken one of their other tools and modified it to fit up inside of this race, and basically just quickly just MIG welded it onto this to make it work. That's supposed to be part of some, this piece here is supposed to be part of some puller set that comes with it, and I really don't give a crap about that. So this is really the only reason I bought this thing. So let's go ahead and get this pulled out of here. You just have to go around the race. And it's not easy to get out. Let's start there. But it will come out. It just takes a little bit of time. But we'll get it like that. Use this other one. All right. There's the lower race. Right there. So we're going to use this to press the new lower race in place. Make sure I didn't burn anything up, and I didn't. It all looks good in there. So we'll go ahead and get the other lower race. We'll press it in real quick. All right, so again, like I just showed you guys a few moments ago when I pressed in the upper race, there's a big difference between the tapered bearing or the taper bearing race and this stupid ball bearing race. But we are going to flip this inside, upside down, use it to help press this race into place. So that you're not beating directly onto the new race. It's going a little bit crooked. Just trying to get this stand up. And again, what we're listening for is that the ringing sound when it actually meets the back of the tree, or the back of the neck, which it is really close. Yep. And what will happen is you'll hear this seat. There'll be a difference in the ringing when you hit this. Hear the difference? All right, so that's going to wrap it up today for episode 8. There was nothing really exciting going on. Like I said, we're waiting on some parts to come back. But this is the kind of stuff that has to be done so that I'm not having to fiddle around with getting all this stuff done when we do get all the stuff back in, and the exciting part starts of actually putting things back together. Next week we should have some parts back from powder. Hopefully we'll be able to take some time and get those put back together. I will tell you the lower fork legs, the fork covers, the triple trees are all going gloss black. The fender adapters that I had made are also gloss black. The whole bike is going gloss black, so it's going to be a very blacked out look. We're actually debating on, we were debating on doing the wheels, but I don't think we actually need to now. I did a little bit of cleaning on those, and they actually are going to turn out pretty good. So between that, we're going to do some white wall tires, and we have some ideas for some pinstriping and some stuff, some writing and lettering we're going to put on the tank, and maybe some stuff around the back fender. So that's going to kind of throw off a little bit of black, but we really wanted that all blacked out look, which I personally seem to like. If you guys remember the first iteration I did on my personal VTX, it was all black wheels, black paint, black, everything I could black out and powder coat I did. So this is kind of similar to that. This is just much more extreme. I didn't have custom fender, I didn't have air ride, I didn't have all that stuff. So I'm kind of excited to get this thing together. This is going to be a pretty sweet bike. So thanks again for coming back. Make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. You guys have any questions, make sure you ask them down there in that comment section. I do everything I can to get those answered. Now the cables are put on, we have the carb pretty much tuned where I think it's probably going to need to be, at least to start with. And we got the races put in the neck. We're just waiting. I'm waiting like a kid at Christmas for some parts to come back from powder coat, and we're going to start putting some stuff together. So hang in there with me, and I'll see you guys next Monday. So now that we got the cables put on, now the cables are put on, we have the carb pretty much tuned where I think it's probably going to need to be, at least to start with. And we got the races put in the neck. We're just waiting. I'm waiting like a kid at Christmas for some parts to come back from powder coat, and we're going to start putting some stuff together. So hang in there with me, and I'll see you guys next Monday.